2018 climate change, it's actually, to put it briefly, when it's hot, it's going to be really hot. And when it's cold, it's going to be really cold. So we see that already, that in some places, like especially in the east coast of the US, we just had a very cold spell. And we're going to see that around the world. In certain places, the wintry weather is really going to hit hard. And then when we come to summer, we're going to see very hot weathers affecting people globally. So last year I predicted that there was going to be a lot of fires, and basically most of the West Coast was on fire. I remember flying from Edmonton all the way down to San Francisco, and the entire West Coast of the US was covered, and Canada by the way, was covered with smoke, not fog, which blew my mind. And I saw a lot of fires in other parts of the world also, because that was the general trend. This year we're going to have we're going to see some fires, especially in the summer and fall and early fall, but not to the extent that we saw previously. What we're going to see basically in right now is the severe cold weather coming around in different parts of the world. But what we're going to see more in spring is mudslides, which we haven't seen a lot of those before.
So that means a lot of rain or so?
A lot of rain. Basically, when there's no snow, it's going to turn into rain. Unfortunately, because of the fires last year, we are going to see a lot of mudslides because the trees have been uprooted and the structures have been.
Or is this a result of the severe winters that you have a lot of snow melting?
Yes, and this is purely astrological. So it's almost like every few years, every about 4 or 5 years, we have these cycles. But then what happens is that the previous year conditions what happens in the following year.
Okay, so if one extreme in the previous year, you can assume that
they'll be extreme in the next year. Yeah. So basically on the West Coast, we're going to see pretty much West Coast around the world, on the western side of the world of most countries. If they have access to the ocean, then we're going to see mudslides.
Even in Europe, that means like Portugal, Spain,
certain places, France, some
certainly,
places like that. Yeah,
England.
we're going to see mud events. Like instead of just floods, we're going to see mud and.
So that's basically earth element and water element.
Exactly, earth and water element mixed together, and actually you'll see it wiping houses. But the winds are going to be even stronger. The gale winds, the hail winds will find them blowing things away, and that's going to be quite a news item in 2018.
It already is in Switzerland, at least, or Europe.
Yeah. In Europe, yeah. In Holland, there were some houses being blown away, and I saw a clip about a person actually flying because of the winds. But this is part of this trend this year. We'll also see some volcanic activity in the US, and I'm not sure where exactly, but we'll see increased volcanic activity around the world, and maybe an earthquake on the western coast of the US. So since I live in the US, I think most of my focus has been in the US, but we'll see a lot more activity.
So the earthquake you're talking about, just an earthquake, or you talk about the big earthquake like in San Francisco 100 years ago?
Yeah, it is very similar to the big earthquake in San Francisco. Now, it may not happen in San Francisco, but it's going to happen somewhere on the West Coast. Now, will it create the damage that it did in 1906? Not necessarily, depending on the population around.
But equal magnitude, so like
the magnitude will be severe.
8 or something.
Yeah, the magnitude will be quite severe. If I was going to predict an area where it's going to hit, it'll be probably somewhere around LA. But basically, I'm just including the entire West Coast.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're quite often based in Washington State, no?
I'm based in Seattle and the East Coast also sometimes.
Okay, so.
And if somebody was if we look at the weather patterns, and particularly in the West Coast of the U.S., I mean, California right now in 2018. This real estate values will still be high, but it will be a good time to sell in 2018 because in 19 again, these weather patterns are going to shift to actually depreciate the value of real estate in California
So
particularly.
that means if your house still stands after the mudslides, the
Right.
rains, the earthquake,
And the fires.
the fires, and that means the price will be lower because the whole region will become less attractive. Or
Let's say because of natural events, you know. So
okay,
I think that's about it for climate change.